Thank you for joining me today to talk about reading photometrics. This video is going to cover some beginning basics of a science that could garner an entire degree of its own, but we won't go that deep. Let's just take a quick look at why photometrics can be important and how to read the information to create better lighting design. We'll cover how to read a standard ELCO photometric report. This is an example from ELCO's Birch system, and we often include this information in our fixture spec sheets available on our website. This information is the readable PDF version. Alternately, this data can be found in the form of an IES file, also frequently downloadable for our items. IES files are the raw data used by different software programs to display this same photometric data for people that use these reports frequently in their careers or projects, mainly architects and lighting design specialists. They can access the IES files from any manufacturer, and all the different reports will be displayed in a consistent and usable format with their drafting and design programs. Before we get into specifics about reading the report here, I'd like to emphasize two lighting design tips that are vital to understanding why photometrics are even necessary or important to reference. Tip number one is that good lighting has very little to do with how bright you can make a room. Often, we desire much less light to create a more social or serene environment, even when the area to be lit is a workspace. Bad lighting can cause anxiety, headaches, and can interrupt the very activity a person's trying to accomplish. These two examples here are probably a bit overdone, but they show the possibilities for lighting design. Good lighting for homes and businesses is about selecting some specific surfaces, areas, and items that you want to stand out from the rest of the space without causing glare. The idea is to focus light on work surfaces and dramatic decor. The remaining space needs a soothing level of illumination to prevent dark areas from having so much contrast that it causes eye strain. If you provide a wide range of appropriate options, you won't have to get too specific and scientific about what is necessarily and exactly right. But for those of you who really love to dig into specifics, lighting recommendations for specific areas are given in foot candles. Normal residential fixtures provide about 6 to 12 foot candles of ambient room light. A reading or table lamp next to a person will provide about 20 to 50 foot candles. A task light specifically meant to light a delicate or detailed workspace will deliver about 50 to 100 foot candles. Commercial office spaces need 30 to 50 foot candles of light. But I want to emphasize the importance of contrast to keep your eyes from needing to adjust frequently, which is the cause of significant eye strain. You'll want to keep task surfaces no more than 3 times as bright as adjacent surfaces, and no more than 10 times as bright as remote walls or surfaces. You can imagine sitting in a dark room, staring at your bright smartphone screen at night. Anytime your eyes veer away from the screen, your eyes adjust for the overwhelming darkness and need to adjust back seconds later when your gaze returns to the light. The same thing happens if your desk or workspace is overlit compared to the walls just beyond your work surface. Plus, people over 55 tend to need about twice as much light as people under 20. You can see how all this planning can get terribly complex, and we haven't even considered yet how to calculate the foot candles from a specific fixture. Let's run the numbers for an example light fixture. We calculate foot candles based on how many lumens the fixture produces, times the percentage of light the walls will probably reflect, since dark colors reflect less than light colors, times the percentage of light reflected or emitting from the fixture. Let's say we have a bulb producing 1200 lumens in a 10 by 10 room, and the fixture traps about 20% of the light, so 80% is delivered into the room, just because it has an amber shade. And the walls and ceilings are beige or light wood, so we'll guesstimate that they only reflect 70% of the light back into the room. For this 100 square foot room, the calculation is going to be foot candles equals 1200 times 80% times 70% divided by 100 square feet, and 7 general foot candles will be produced depending on where the surfaces are throughout the room. You can see this is somewhat of an estimate, and it's needlessly complex for most purposes. For most residential and straightforward commercial spaces, simply provide plenty of light, along with control options, and you'll have all situations covered, even if someone changes the furniture later, buys different shades, or paints the walls a different color. Our second tip involves having too much light in one place. Every house on the block probably uses outdoor bulbs equivalent to a 60-watt old bulb. That's about 800 lumens. If someone has a larger porch and longer stairs, they'll want more light. A natural inclination is to go grab a 100-watt bulb, about 1200 lumens. Is that all fixed? Well, no. The brighter the light in any one direction will cause our pupils to dilate for anyone facing the light source. Now we have surfaces that have far too much contrast. That causes glare, and that's a real problem. Suddenly the walls look black, and the glare is very uncomfortable. The far better option is to provide light from more surfaces and areas. This will eliminate the problem of glare and provide a more functional and beautiful space. If you're trying to light a whole room by making one ceiling light fixture brighter, you'll be creating a dull, even light over your entire design. Nothing will have the dramatic focus your design elements deserve. If you're using one floor lamp as a corner lighthouse to brighten a room, you'll have a glaring light when you face toward it and complete darkness everywhere else. Interiors need lighting beyond a simple flush mount fixture in the center of the room. Floor lamps in dark corners, wall sconces or picture lights around artwork and dark walls, table lamps near seating are always welcome additions to a bedroom or family room. In the end, the best lighting for any room will have multiple options for setting scenes using different combinations of light sources on controls that allow adjustment for brightness levels. When the needs of the room change, so will the illumination. Here's an example of a photometric report. It may likely contain several variations of the same information because light output will be different in some way if, for example, the color temperature is adjusted or when a lumen switch is included with the item that'll adjust the brightness of the fixture. This report may contain just one or may offer information for any number of available combinations of fixture settings. Each section of this report will be a complete photometric report for your needs. Thankfully at ELCO, we're mostly dealing with downlights, always overhead, always shining downward. Photometrics can be far more complex than we'll cover today to serve the needs of hydroponic operations, science lab requirements, vehicle safety, film and television production, and visual displays for skyscrapers and bridges. I promise we won't go that deep into the numbers today. The first information provided will be the skew and settings for this particular variation. Here we have a specific fixture set with 1000 lumens and 3000 K color temperature. If that's not the settings you intend to use in your installation, you can completely skip this information and move to a different section. The radial graph provided is a visual representation of the number charts on the right. Initially, these visual graphs may not be too clear. Only after working with the numerical information over time will this chart become familiar and useful. From this chart, the vertical line on the left represents the center of the downlight beam, usually called the nadir. And the horizontal line at the top is the light emitted from the fixture at a 90-degree angle from the fixture surface. A candela is similar to a lumen, but is light that's traveling in a specific direction, and that candela eventually becomes a foot candle once it strikes a surface. This curved line on the graph is simply the depiction of the candle power summary numbers to the right. So at this point on the curved line, we see about 327 candelas traveling out of the fixture at a 35-degree angle. Here's a line along the 35-degree point, and here's the arc line along the 327 candelas point. We can see on the curve and on the chart that at 90 degrees there are no candelas, no light coming from the fixture at all. And straight down from the fixture, we have the most intense light of 1376 candelas straight down. You can quickly see on the chart that the curved line is very smooth and gradual, so there are no hot spots or cutoffs from this fixture. The light shines straight down and gradually tapers away from center as it spreads out, and most of the light exists within about 30 degrees from the center in both directions. So about a 60-degree beam spread side to side from the center with a quick tapering of the light outside of that area. The report so far has told us how much light is emitted from the fixture, but how much light will actually hit our surfaces around the room? How much light will there be on the dining table, desk, or kitchen counter, for instance? For this information, we need to take a look at the Illuminance at a Distance section. Depending on the height of our surface and the height of our ceiling, the light source will end up being a specific distance away. At that distance, the 60-degree beam spread will form a cone that gets larger as the distance increases, and the resulting light will be more and more dispersed. On this chart here, we can see that at a 6-foot distance from the fixture, there will be about 42-foot candles reaching a surface with a spread of about 5 feet wide. This would be the information we need if our ceiling is 9 feet high and our counter is 3 feet high. The difference is 6 feet. And from earlier in this presentation, we see that it's best to have room light at about 12-foot candles and task light above 50. This 40-foot candles could be just about right for a general work counter in a kitchen, but probably too bright for a dining table. We also see with this chart that if we have ceilings that are 11 feet, the foot candles drop to only 21 at a surface distance of 8 feet. It's also going to produce that much light for a space 6.5 feet wide. If we're trying to light our home office desk, this will be wide enough, but not for working light. That's just barely enough for reading. But that might be just what we want, because we're planning to have a desk lamp too. The remaining section of this report is the zonal lumen summary. Here we find a more specific description for the beam spread. You can read that at 40 degrees wide, which is 20 degrees in all directions from the center, there are about 859 total lumens, representing about 80% of the total light produced. That's not all of it yet. And at 60 degrees, you get almost everything, 95% of the total lumens produced. The cutoff's not complete, so there's about 5% more light, making it past that 60-degree beam spread. But that's just the tapering edge of the beam. You can see that this report might change dramatically for things like pinhole and wall wash trims that specifically seek to block off the light produced in a certain direction or angle. Louvers and lenses can have a subtle or dramatic effect as well. You might see from this information where the cutoff will be, to make sure light won't be shining past a large picture and down the adjacent hallway, for instance, or onto an adjacent table in a restaurant with high ceilings. There are other features and methods to control light after installation to make exact photometric calculations less concerning. First, many lighting choices have onboard settings. For example, our birch module has a fully adjustable beam spread as well as a lumen switch. Just flick the lumen switch or twist the lens to deliver the right amount of light where it's needed. Secondary optics are also often available for upscale lighting choices. A different trim shape, lens, or filter can dramatically change the available light or reduce glare or hot spots. These secondary optics can often be changed on a whim for generally low expense. And we've already mentioned controls. Adequate control options can greatly enhance how the light can be used in an instant. Dimmers can change the light for different tasks and for different people's needs at any time desired. Well, there you go. I hope this basic information helps you understand the data available to you in our photometric reports and gives you some important information about how to use the light, products, and accessories to design your illumination to create better lighting for your project. Thank you for watching.